The restaurant was busy that night. Silverware clinked, soft music played, and the smell of roasted garlic and butter filled the air. Sarah rushed between tables, balancing plates and keeping her smile in place. It was just another Friday night at La Bella's, the kind of place where people came to feel important. That's when Mr. Daniels walked in. He wore a sharp blue suit and shiny shoes. His watch looked like it cost more than Sarah's rent. Heads turned when he entered. He didn't wait to be seated. He walked right up to the host stand and snapped his fingers. "I have a reservation under Daniels," he said loudly. "I don't wait." The host smiled politely and led him to his table. He sat down like he owned the place, spreading out his things and already calling for water before the waiter arrived. Leo, the waiter for that section, came to the table with a warm smile, though his eyes looked tired. He'd been on his feet for hours. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you started with something to drink?" Mr. Daniels didn't look at him. "Sparkling water, cold, no lemon. And hurry up." Leo nodded and walked off without a word. All night, Mr. Daniels barked orders and sent food back, saying it wasn't up to his standards. Leo stayed calm. He smiled, apologized, and fixed every problem, no matter how rude Mr. Daniels got. When the bill came, Mr. Daniels signed it and stood up to leave. "No tip. He's just a waiter," he said loud enough for the staff to hear. "Not worth it." Sarah watched from across the room. Her heart sank. Leo didn't say anything. He just cleared the table like it never happened. But Sarah saw the hurt in his eyes. The restaurant finally closed for the night. Chairs were stacked, floors were swept, and the last of the dishes clattered in the kitchen. The air smelled of soap and leftover pasta. Most of the staff had already gone home. Sarah wiped down the coffee machine when she saw Leo sitting alone at a corner table, still wearing his apron. His hands were in his lap, and he stared at the empty space in front of him. He looked exhausted. She walked over and sat across from him. "You okay?" she asked gently. Leo shrugged. "Yeah, just another night." But Sarah knew it wasn't just another night. That man, Mr. Daniels, had treated Leo like dirt, and Leo didn't deserve that. He was the most patient person she knew. "I heard what he said," Sarah said quietly. "About you not being worth it." Leo gave a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've heard worse," he said. "Some people think they're better than you just because they have money. That doesn't make it right," Sarah replied. Leo leaned back in his chair and looked up at the ceiling. "You know, I've been saving. Working double shifts, skipping breaks. I want to start my own business one day. Maybe something in tech. I used to fix phones in high school." Sarah smiled. "You'd be great at that." Leo chuckled. "Maybe. But guys like him, they'd never believe someone like me could do it." She reached out and gave his hand a gentle squeeze. "One day, you'll be the one in charge," she said, "and people like him will wish they treated you better." Leo smiled, a little stronger this time. "Maybe," he said. "We'll see." Time passed quickly at La Bella's. New customers came in, old ones faded out, and the staff kept moving. But something felt different after Leo left. One morning, Sarah came into work and saw a note on Leo's locker. He had quit. No big goodbye, no final shift, just a simple thank you note. He wrote that it was time for him to try something new, and he hoped they'd all understand. Sarah stood there holding the note for a long time. She felt proud, but also a little sad. The place wouldn't be the same without him. A few months later, she heard through a former co-worker that Leo had started his own small tech repair shop on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy. No neon signs or big ads, just a tiny store with a hand-painted sign that said Leo's Fix It. At first, business was slow. He didn't have many customers, and he had to do everything himself: repairs, cleaning, even handing out flyers on the street. But Leo didn't give up. He stayed late every night. He watched online videos, learned more about tech, and kept improving his skills. Slowly, people started coming back. They told their friends. Word spread that Leo was honest and didn't overcharge like other places. Meanwhile, Sarah sometimes saw Mr. Daniels on TV. He was still rich, still smiling, always talking about his latest deals or showing off a new car. It was strange seeing how different their lives were. One man was building something from nothing. The other acted like nothing could ever touch him. Sarah couldn't help but wonder how long that would last. It happened faster than anyone expected. One day, Mr. Daniels was on the cover of business magazines, smiling in a fancy suit. The next his face was all over the news, but this time it wasn't good. Local CEO, accused of fraud, the headlines read. His company was under investigation. People said he had lied to investors and moved money around to make himself look more successful. The fancy cars, the expensive trips, the big parties, it had all been built on shaky ground. Sarah watched the news one night after her shift, a plate of leftovers in her lap. When she saw his face on the screen, her mouth dropped open. It was him. The man who once said a waiter wasn't worth a tip. Now he was the one losing everything. Within weeks, Mr. Daniels was forced to quit his job. The company fell apart, and so did his reputation. People stopped answering his calls, his so-called friends vanished. His mansion went up for sale, followed by his cars. He was no longer the man who walked into restaurants, snapping his fingers. He was just another name in a long list of men who thought they were too big to fall. Sarah felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of her felt sorry for him. Losing everything must have been terrifying. But another part of her remembered Leo's quiet face that night in the restaurant. She thought about how life had a funny way of flipping things around. The world doesn't always stay the same. Sometimes it turns the tables. Months passed, and Mr. Daniels was no longer a name people whispered about. He had faded from the news, and most had moved on. But his life had not gotten better. He had burned through his savings trying to fix things. His house was gone, his suits were old and didn't fit like they used to. No one wanted to hire a man with a scandal behind him, even if he once ran a company. For the first time in his life, Mr. Daniels had to do something he thought he'd never do. He had to look for a job. He walked around the city, resume in hand, wearing a wrinkled shirt and scuffed shoes. Rejection came quickly. Some businesses didn't even let him finish his sentence. One rainy afternoon, he came across a small but clean tech repair shop with big windows and a line of customers inside. A sign above the door read, "Leo's Fix-It, fast, fair and friendly." He stepped inside, shaking water from his coat. The shop smelled like fresh coffee and warm plastic. People were chatting quietly, while waiting for their devices. It didn't look like much, but it was clearly doing well. He walked up to the front desk and asked if they were hiring. The young worker smiled. "We're always looking for help. The boss does interviews in the afternoon. He'll be with you shortly." Mr. Daniels sat down on a bench near the window, his hands folded tight in his lap. He looked around, wondering what kind of man ran a place like this. He had no idea that the man about to walk through the door was someone he had met before. Someone he had once looked down on. The door behind the desk opened, and a man in a black polo shirt and jeans stepped out. He had a kind face and confident eyes. There was a quiet strength about him. It was Leo. He had changed. He looked older, more sure of himself. His hair was a little shorter, and he wore glasses now. But there was no mistaking him. Mr. Daniels didn't recognize him at first. "Hi, I'm Leo," he said, offering his hand. "You're here for the job." Mr. Daniels stood, surprised by the calm voice. He shook Leo's hand and nodded. "Yes, I saw the sign outside. I used to run a company. I've got business experience," and Leo held up a hand gently. "Let's take a seat." They sat across from each other at a small desk in the back office. Leo pulled out a notepad, but his eyes stayed on Mr. Daniels. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "You don't remember me, do you?" Mr. Daniels blinked. "Should I?" Leo leaned back in his chair, his voice even. "You came into La Bella's fancy restaurant about a year ago. I waited your table." There was a pause. Mr. Daniels' face slowly changed, his eyes widened, and color drained from his cheeks. "You refused to tip," Leo added softly. "Said I wasn't worth it." The room fell silent. Mr. Daniels looked down at the floor. "I didn't know, I didn't recognize you." Leo stayed calm, but something in his eyes flickered. I remembered you, he said. Some things stick with you. Mr. Daniels shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The room felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. His hands trembled slightly, as he tried to gather his words. I'm sorry, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was not a kind person back then. Leo didn't answer right away. He looked down at his notepad, then back at Mr. Daniels. His face was calm, but serious. What changed? Leo finally asked. Why now? Mr. Daniels let out a heavy sigh. I lost everything. My job, my home, my reputation. No one wants me. I thought I was on top of the world, but it all crumbled. Now, I need a chance. Leo listened closely. His fingers tapped the desk lightly. He remembered every moment of that night, the snapping fingers, the cold tone, the way Mr. Daniels had acted like Leo wasn't even a real person. But he also remembered the promise he made to himself. If I ever made it, I'd do better. I wouldn't become like him. So now you know what it feels like. To be looked down on. To be invisible. Mr. Daniels nodded. Yes, I do, and I regret it. Sarah, who had walked in to deliver a folder, paused by the door. She didn't say anything, but she caught Leo's eye. She remembered too. Life had a strange way of turning people around. Some for worse. Some for better. And sometimes, the person you once ignored becomes the one deciding your future. Leo sat at his desk, long after Mr. Daniels left. The interview had ended quietly. Mr. Daniels thanked him, and walked out, shoulders low, not knowing if he'd ever hear back. The silence that followed left the room heavy with old memories and new thoughts. Later that evening, as the shop closed, Sarah stepped into Leo's office with 2 cups of tea. You okay? She asked, placing one on his desk. Leo nodded slowly. Yeah, just thinking. Sarah sat across from him, her eyes soft. I saw him, she said. I recognized him the second I walked in. Leo looked out the window at the dark street. I didn't expect to see him again. Not like this. So, what are you going to do? Leo was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice low, but steady. I wanted to say no. Part of me still remembers how he treated me, like I didn't matter. He looked down at his hands. But then I thought, maybe this is my chance to be better. To be the kind of boss I always wished I had. Sarah smiled. You always were that kind of person. Leo gave a small smile back. I won't give him a top job, he needs to earn it like anyone else. But maybe, just maybe, I can give him a start. Sarah nodded. He might not deserve it. But that's not the point. Leo looked up. Exactly. It's not about what he deserves. It's about what kind of person I want to be. The next Monday, Mr. Daniels walked through the door of Leo's Fix-It, not as a customer, not as a CEO, but as the newest entry-level employee. He wore a plain polo shirt and khakis that didn't quite fit. His hands, once used to signing contracts and shaking hands in boardrooms, now handled phones, tablets, and cleaning cloths. No one made a big deal out of it. Leo had told the team to treat him like anyone else. A few co-workers whispered at first, curious about the older man with tired eyes, but soon, everyone went back to their routines. Mr. Daniels worked quietly. He listened, he asked questions when he didn't know something. He made mistakes, but he didn't make excuses. He stayed late sometimes, wiping down the counters or organizing supplies without being asked. Sarah watched from a distance. She saw the difference, not just in the way he moved, but in the way he looked at people. His eyes weren't sharp and proud anymore. They were softer, wiser. One day, Leo walked by and saw Mr. Daniels helping a customer, an elderly woman who didn't know how to unlock her phone. Instead of sighing or rushing, he patiently showed her, smiling and kind. After she left, Leo paused. You're getting good at this, he said. Mr. Daniels looked up, surprised. Then he nodded. Feels good, helping people. I never really did that before. Leo gave a small nod in return. Keep it up. Something had changed between them. Not friendship, not yet, but a quiet respect had started to grow. Sometimes, the best way to rebuild a life is from the very bottom. And sometimes, that's where the strongest parts are found. A year later, the little tech shop was busier than ever. Leo's Fix-It had grown, but it still felt like family. Everyone pitched in and worked hard, and the mood was good. Mr. Daniels had come a long way. He was no longer just the new guy. He had earned trust and respect, moving up to a role where he helped train others. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying every day. One quiet evening, after closing time, Mr. Daniels brought coffee for Leo and Sarah, a small but thoughtful gesture. "Thanks for giving me a second chance," he said softly, placing the cups on the desk. Sarah smiled warmly. "You earned it." Leo nodded, eyes kind but serious. "It's not about where you start, or where you fall. It's about what you do after." They sat together, the day's work behind them. The past felt far away now. Sarah thought about the first time she saw Mr. Daniels refuse to tip Leo, and how far they'd all come since then. "Kindness costs nothing," she whispered to herself, "but it can change everything." And in that moment, with two men who once stood worlds apart, sharing a simple cup of coffee, everything had changed.